Now to a very big story of the day. Nigeria's indigenous refinery, Dangote Refinery, has rolled out its first set of premium motor spirit, that's PMS or petrol, from its 650,000 barrels per day facility. The $20 billion refinery built by billionaire Aliko Dangote began operations in January, initially producing naphtha and jet fuel. Briefing journalists this morning, the president of Dangote Group says Nigeria will have engine-friendly gasoline for the very first time. He also spoke extensively with our energy correspondent, Olu Phillips.
Thank you. Well, how far, there's no limit to how far, we're going to, as a human being, obviously we have ambitions, and I think our own is to make sure that we make our country and Africa proud. So the journey just started, and we'll continue, we'll start. The journey has just started today, you are right. Really, even 5-6 years ago, I don't really have gray hair, but right now, it's history. But we thank God, at least we've been able to deliver. So I can say that, it's a golden gray hair, which I believe it is worth it. And I'm a very, very happy person today. I must thank really, our great team, led by Ms. Edwin, for making this dream, possible. I must thank, also Mr. Alaki for giving that support to make sure that this...
And let me just interject and ask how much...
So you can watch out for the full interview and a fuller package of that, the PMS production that begins today on subsequent news bulletin, especially our flagship news at 10. And one information that you get from that is Mr. Dangote has said that it's expected that products from the refinery will be in circulation in about 48 hours. And when asked about the price, he did say that the Federal Executive Council is having talks on that. And so he could not really give us a price to expect the product. But I mean, the assurance that we're going to have energy security supply might be something to celebrate. And he said that should happen in 48 hours. But let's see what else to expect from this with the managing consultant as well as the chief executive officer of Flame Academy, Mr. Oju Demezue. We tried to have a decent conversation with you yesterday. Unfortunately, the network and some other issues, but thank God that we have you this afternoon. And it's always also good because you now have the opportunity to comment on this big thing that has started in Nigeria, the beginning of PMS, even though we know diesel and jet fuel have been coming out from Dangote, but we know that the most basic need of Nigerians at this time is petrol, which is PMS. What are your expectations now that we have products coming from Dangote Refinery?
Okay, this is like the Bible story of how Daniel's prayers, were answered by God, and then the prince of Persia, some demonic princes, stopped that, the God's answer from happening. So today, I can happily say that Nigeria has overcome the prince of Persia. Finally, we no longer are under the curse of importing the same thing that we produce greatly in this nation. Hearty congratulations to the president of this Federal Republic, and then very importantly, hearty congratulations to Aliko Dangote, the visionary, the dreamer, who just took a walk over to that part of Lekki to see lands, according to him. And eventually he dreamt. And then today, that dream has finally come true. Even if it's just a liter of fuel that was produced today, I am very thankful to God that Nigeria is making some progress. Kudos to Dangote Refinery, which is arguably one of the largest in the world, if not indeed the largest refinery in the world, and which is also a big threat to many other refiners around the world, in Europe, in North America, in Asia, and everywhere else. So it's a big news, and it is worth popping champagne for. After my classes today, I think I'll go and take 1 or 2 bottles on the head of Aliko, and I'll pass my bill to you.
All right, Mr. Adewale, wish you well as you do that. But, we still have the worry and concern of crude availability. Even before now, we know that Dangote has had to import WTI from the United States. And this is in the midst of, in a country where we're supposed to have abundance of crude. So crude availability, not just to Dangote, but also to the other refiners in the country, is still a challenge.
All right, Wahala, no, they finish. In life, problems are a continual part of life. So that challenge remains there. I know a lot of arguments back and forth with NNPC and and all the other stakeholders about how Dangote can get regular supply of crude oil, because Nigeria somehow in the past had mortgaged a lot of our production to loans that have been used in the past, and we're going to pay over time, whether it's African Development Bank or IMF and so on. So that challenge remains there. But the good thing is that this refinery is now working. I know that in Nigeria's best interest, we had better found a way to supply regular crude to Dangote refinery, because it's going to be to our advantage. It's FX inflow positive, it's employment positive, it's economic growth positive. So by any means, I know that some time ago, our President, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, had given a very strong instruction that everything must be done to ensure that this refinery gets regularly fed with crude oil. So I hope they work on that. But even if they don't, the good news is that with the African Continental Free Trade Agreement happening, this refinery is capable of supplying crude to the rest of Africa, from Kenya to South Africa, to Rwanda, to several other countries that have to cross Africa to go and find refined petroleum everywhere else in the world. This is like an uhuru for Africa, because it's easier now to deal with an African refiner to get this crude. Distance is closer, hopefully, for supply, and pricing, I'm sure, is going to be better. So the good news is that whether Dangote is buying from, WTI or Brent, or most importantly, Nigeria's own, crude of different, sulfur content and so on, is good news that he's able to produce this thing, create jobs for the country, increase tax payment. He's still a major, if not the highest taxpayer in this country. Much more tax is coming to Nigeria. So it's big news in any way you look at it. Inflation is going to reduce, because the inflation caused by this, continual importation of refined petroleum is likely to abate if we make crude oil available to Dangote refinery. Even if we have to subsidize, we are now subsidizing our own production. If you subsidize production, it's a lot more growth positive for a nation than subsidizing consumption, imported consumption for that matter.
Yeah, well, as you said, it's good news looking from all sides, and we really, really appreciate the efforts of Dangote for this, giving us a sense of pride as Nigerians. Yesterday, we're trying to talk about the expected impact now that Oando has fully acquired Agip Nigeria. We've seen that stock surging for like 2 weeks continuously now. It's always top trades and gaining. But other than the investors, what other gains can Nigeria or Nigerians expect to get from that? I mean, we're talking about energy security now. Wow, I hope what happened yesterday.
I'm here. I'm here.
Did you get the question, Mr. Demezwe?
Yeah, I have a. So the point is that it's just like Dangote, like Oando. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Oh no, the Dangote is too, and that's also the same for Oando. If you can hear me, and like I was saying yesterday before the network, which also now threatening me, I pray God it doesn't happen again. Network 2 days, but I'm hoping we get through this discussion. Can you?
I can hear you, Mr. Demezwe. Please go ahead. Mr. Demezwe, can you hear me?
Hello, Ini, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Please go ahead. Go ahead, Mr.
All right,
Demezwe.
okay. So, Oando is also now a foremost, player in the oil and gas upstream sector.
Wow, looks like
their dream, right from 2000 to 2014. No, the network is frustrating, but it's okay. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, so I'm saying that this is like a dream come true too for Oando, having been very steadfast in their vision to bring about this, great acquisition of upstream asset, and now where they are born with over the time. And it's a very big plus for the country too. And in my view, this is the kind of thing we need to start happening to grow our economy to the $1 trillion we have promised it to be. Because Nigeria has gone under the tutelage of the IOCs over 60 years now. And you wonder why a 60-year-old child cannot take charge of a business he has run and led at different directions. Nigerians have become managers, leaders, even managing directors of different IOCs in the past decades. So it is time that we take over that stage. We cannot continue to be fed by our mother, even at 60. So Oando has taken a very bold step to take over the assets of NAOC, which I'm very confident they will manage very well. And these assets are very huge, in their capacity. Over 40 discovered fields and even 40 yet to be discovered prospects and so on. Several wellheads and flow stations, more than 12 of them. You have one of the biggest oil terminals in Brass. I put in these places because I did my youth service in Ajin. And I know about these assets when we talk about them. Whether it's Tebidaba, Nembe, Oboimbri, and all of those. The flow stations in all parts of, Niger Delta. And very importantly, even gas stations. 3 gas processing stations are involved in this deal. And we also have about 2 powerfully established power plants that I understand can even feed more than 15 million Nigerians with full-time electricity. That's in Obai, Beniku, Kwale, Obai axis. I've been to Kwale, Beniku, Obai in my flow station, assessment and so on. So I know these assets very well, and I believe that as much or even much more than now, Nigeria Electric Oil Company, that Oando can bring out the best out of this asset. And that's going to help Nigeria, ramp up our crude oil production, help reduce gas flaring, and turn our gas into very useful asset in our families, empowering our plants, and also, very importantly, create jobs for Nigerians, and also much more, give a big opportunity for the Nigerian banks to play big time in this sector. It's all positive, and it's also very FX inflow positive for Nigeria, because there's no more repatriation of FX earnings by the international companies. There's no more, playing game with accounting and so on. I only pray that NNPC and other regulators will ensure that we support this indigenous initiative to be a big player in this sector. And mind you, if Oando does their job very well, you find that they will take over this market in Africa. Once they get proper funding from the banking sector, you find that whether it is exploration and development of project sites in Ghana or Kenya and other parts of Africa where we have oil and gas resources, this is a big thing for Nigeria. And again, with AFTA, that's the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, this is a very big plus for Africa to supply other African nations with crude oil and even refined petroleum. And again, Dangote is likely to have a better deal with Oando than any other IOC. So it's all positive in any direction. And I believe that if time allows, we'll talk about the implication of financing this asset, making sure we bring out all the value in them, to squeeze out all the productivity from these assets, to make all the money, pay their debts over time, when the banks syndicate loans to them, and of course, create employment for Nigerians, reduce our important inflation, and very importantly, enable Nigeria achieve our $1 trillion GDP growth in the next 6 or 7 years, according to our president's vision.
All right, Mr. Demizwe, yes, thank you so much. I hear you there suggesting a collaboration between Dangote and Oando. Well, I know they're 2 big giants and they do know exactly what they want, but thank you so much for sharing your time and your views with us. And thank God we are able to get this conversation out of the way. We've been trying to do that since yesterday.
Would you allow me to make one more comment on this?
Very short, Mr. Demizwe.
Okay, I want to believe that Nigerian banks will be smart enough and forward-looking to see the opportunity in financing these assets. Because, now Nigerian banks are recapitalizing, so we're going to very soon have another big quantum of capital lying idle in the banks. They must not go the way of margin lending anymore. This is a very strategic asset that requires bank syndications from investment banks, wholesale, commercial banks, and so on, to make sure that this asset, particularly the short-term producing asset, begin to roll out a lot of money for both the banks, the nation, and of course, Oando. And I want to also say hearty congratulations to Oando Group. This is a great deal for Nigeria and Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time and your perspective right there, Managing Consultant and Chief Executive Officer of Flame Academy and Consultant Limited, Mr. Oji Udemizwe.
Greetings from Kigali, the city on 1,000 hills.
Yeah.